right, Dustin and I are back for another podcast, short-ish, depending on how long we get going. So here's the topic today. I was in a meeting with one of our young coaches at Friends that I really, really respect, does a tremendous job. And he was struggling with an athlete and said, he goes, I've just really tried hard to be the coach that I would have wanted. And that got me thinking. I've heard that saying a lot, but then we talked. Dustin, tell me your thoughts on that. The philosophy of be the coach you wanted.
Yeah, it's really hard. The coach that I wanted and the coach that I was were very opposite. And I think the coach that I am and the coach that I wanted, it's been a while. I don't know those similarities. I would say this, the coach that I wanted, I think is highly relational. I think cares about winning, but doesn't put winning in front of everything else. The coach that I didn't know that I wanted was someone to be incredibly honest, but do it in a way that valued me, loved me, made me feel a part of something. Those are hard things to do. I mean, to be brutally honest with players and yet love and value them, especially in the heat of the moment or when you're on a losing streak.
Do you think you truly wanted brutal honesty as a player?
No, I wanted people to tell me how great I was. and then, yeah, thank you. And then to tell me more. Yeah,
Here's my thought. So as we were talking, I never thought about it, but I was like, I hear what you're saying. But the assumption with that approach is everybody wants the coach that you were. And whether you're a high school coach or the coach you wanted, and whether you're a high school coach where you can't choose your kids, or you're a college coach where in theory you can, even if you're picking your whole team, there's so many people and so many personalities. There's no way a majority of them want the coach that you wanted whenever you were an athlete 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, whatever that means. So I don't know quite what you do with that, but I think it's a dangerous assumption to go down.
Yeah. So my question for you is, what was your response to that coach when he said that?
I said that kind of on a cuff that I wasn't sure where to go from there.
Yeah. It seems it's abstract to me right now. It's fragmented. So let's get to ask me an even more direct question.
I wonder if there's some universality in what are the things every team needs. Because I think, one of our goals here is to target the people that are young coaches like we were and, have them not make the same mistakes we did when we were young coaches together. And I think one mistake I made is I tried to be like the coach I wanted. I had a high school coach named Mike Gear who's he could get you to follow him up the hill. And, it's his voice is still in my head, inspires me, all that kind of stuff. But he was on a scale of 1 to 10. He was a 12 extrovert and I'm an introvert, but I tried to be him. It didn't work for me.
Yep.
So there's a little dangerous going down that path because then you're trying to be somebody or not.
Yep.
So maybe there's a piece of, I think the question is, how do you be uniquely who you are, who God created you to be? And then what does that look like inside a framework with all your kids?
Yeah, there it is. When you were talking, I think the phrase that came to my mind is Kevin Wilder once said, we're all incredibly guilty of who we are. So I guess I would answer that and say, how can you be the best version of being guilty of who you are? And then within that framework, like you said, what are the non-negotiables? And I think those things, business, sports, relationships, we're safe, we're valued, there's set expectations. I think for coaches, it's maybe being incredibly transparent and saying, hey, I feel like I do these things really well. Hey, you're an extrovert or an introvert. I am an extrovert. So our convos with our players are opposite in that, fellas, there's going to be times I talk too much. There's going to be times I'm a little excited. Naming those things to say that may be something you do or don't want, but I can try and meet you in the middle. But at the end of the day, you are guilty of it. I think there's grace in there if you own it and if you're the best version of it. Agreed?
Yeah. And I think there's one thing we talk a lot about. I didn't know where we were going to go when we started this episode, but I think it also goes with, we talk a lot about systems and frameworks. So how does that fit within an umbrella, how you're going to operate with all your kids? And I think back to the 3 C's, where I think that fits human needs. I mean, as athletes, I mean, know what you're talking about. The, culture of care, the systems of care, of how are people feeling valued and empowered. And that can look a lot of different ways to different people. We talk about a lot of strategies. And then are you a person worth trusting, the character piece? I mean, that might be when you're talking about the coach you want to be. It's a system. It's not an attitude.
That's good. And I would add on the constant piece. I think people, they want to know that same person's going to show up daily. Right. And isn't that why the great coaches, You said this to me a long time ago. When the first time you're my boss, teams are rarely as good as they think or as bad as they think. That staying somewhere in the middle is really helpful. I wonder if this this should be the coach you wanted, or be the coach that you can count on, or the title of that. But I like what you just said. Say it again. Systems, not attitude. Say it again.
Why did I mention it? But you can see, well, you can listen to whatever I said there. Yeah, but I think it's within who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's the 3 C's that we talk about, or it's something, it's a different framework people use, you still have to be yourself within that.
Yeah. I would say in that, is that not the great trap? Like I'm now given this responsibility, and we usually think of the opportunity first. And in that, I'm given this quote power. Now what does it have to look like? And how do I would also say this, when we talk about being guilty of being the best version of ourselves, I think the coaches, the leaders that continue to have success over and over, I think they're incredibly curious though. So why do I lead like that? Why is that my personality? And continuing to learn intent versus what's received. Here's my intention as an introvert or extrovert, or if you're me, you're a squirrel. How's that received? And if you're curious about that, I think you can, again, find ways to meet people in the middle. So it's not like, hey, so I am, take it or leave it, get out of the way. It is, I'm going to be the best version of me, and still curious how I can grow in that. I think that curiosity piece is important.
And I think it looks different sports, just purely, quite frankly, from the size of teams, where a golf team of 10, 12, 15 is very different than a team of football team of 120,
Without question.
And figuring out how to understand the character of your team and lead them while being yourself. I think those look very different.
Give the final statement for people listening to this episode. If we said, hey, the coach you want to be is, finish it.
A consistent version of you with consistent expectations and standards.
Love it.
But words meant to sound better.
Yeah.
What would you say? Anything different?
Yeah, I would say yes to that. And I would add somewhere in there and I think you probably said it, but consistently open to, we use the word all the time, elevating in a program. How do you continue to elevate or grow in that? I think you said that. But yeah, we need to wordsmith it. That'd be a good chapter.
Well, we'll leave it there. If you listen on Substack, you can comment in the comments and blow us up of how confused you are after that conversation. But we hope it was helpful. And until next time.